Okay, calm down.
So, Daniel, did you see any of the Oscar films?
Zone of Interest I did see.
Did you like it?
I did. I'm just really upset that the director's acceptance speech is going to cause my great-great-great-great-grandchildren to be pogromed.
So, Zone of Interest is it's based on a historical kind of novella, and it's about a family living next to Auschwitz. And
Rudolf Höss, who
yes.
was the commander of Auschwitz,
the
right?
commander of
Nazi
Auschwitz,
commander.
yeah. So, and
really
that
the
blonde
administrator,
woman,
the bureaucratic administrator, and then his wife, who loves tending the garden and loves their mansion right outside of Auschwitz. Yeah.
It's not exactly a mansion. It's a nice house, though.
No, it's a nice little house, right?
It's a nice house, yeah. And his wife
nicer
and
than she grew up in, because
exactly right.
There's like a really interesting class. There's like a class element
they
there too.
Allude to that, right? Yes, she's really happy to have like dead Jewesses lipstick and fur coats and stuff. And then her mother is really happy because she went to like an auction of the belongings of a woman whose house she cleaned for. So they really allude to the. You know, it's interesting. A lot of pogroms were actually debt liquidation campaigns.
Way to eliminate a debt.
Yeah, seriously.
Eliminate the one who's owed.
The loan shark. That's not really fair because loan sharks. I'm really doing a terrible. I mean, it's like I don't get called a self-loathing Jew enough, and now I'm making jokes about loan sharks and pogroms.
The usurer.
Terrible.
The loan issuer. The loan issuer.
Yeah, the loan issuer, and obviously Jews could do that because usury wasn't illegal. Not illegal. Usury was unkosher in Judaism. It was in Christianity, and Jews also were very limited in what they were allowed to do. Okay, but I think everyone knows this is a safe space. That I don't blame Jews for being usurers. Not usually, at least. Okay.
I won't charge you interest on your self-loathing.
Thank you. Let's show people what we're talking about. This was how Johnathan Glazer accepted the best Oscar for his film, The Zone of Interest, for Best Foreign Film.
All our choices were made to reflect and confront us in the present, not to say, look what they did then, rather look what we do now. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel, or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all are victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist?
And let me just repeat what he said. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people, whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel or the ongoing attack on Gaza. All the victims is dehumanization. How do we resist? The relevant part here, though, is that he said, right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. So right away, the first response I saw to that was from Batya.
Batya, this Ungar-Sargon, the supposedly fair, honest conservative. You know, she's been consistent at least on leftist. Well, true, but when it comes to Israel, you know, she's got her big mug. She leads with her Magen David here, and like Glenn Greenwald had her on his show, and he like lauded her as the kind of like conservative on Israel who's at least consistent and won't fall into the like we need to make universities a safe space for Jewish feelings. Good for her. Yeah. But here she pulls one of the most dishonest parsing tactics.
I simply cannot fathom the moral rot in someone's soul that leads them to win an award for a movie about the Holocaust, and with the platform given to them to accept that award by saying we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness.
Period.
Right. Period. So instead of saying they refute the hijacking of their Jewishness, she made it sound like he was saying we refute our Jewishness. She wasn't the only one who was upset about it. Here's what Ben Shapiro says. In Johnathan Glazer's Zone of Interest, you don't see one Jew. Those are the best Jews, according to Glazer, the faceless victims screaming in the distance. Ironically, he's the villain, picking up awards from the bodies of those anonymous dead Jews while ignoring the living ones getting slaughtered in the Gaza envelope by genocidal murderers.
What a drama queen.
Yeah.
and
really
completely
ridiculous.
Missing the entire artistic point of the film. Should we speak to that?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, because so Batya's tweet, number one, completely dishonest that she puts the period where she did, although, as I think we might talk about, like, I've got some criticisms of how the speech was written.
Yeah.
You could have made it a little harder for them to take it in bad faith. They would have found a way, but you could have made them work for it a bit.
Yeah.
But Ben Shapiro's thing, there's not a single Jew in the film. And there's a reason for that, because it's a film about
otherwise occupied.
The banality of evil,
right?
About the way the machinery of genocide works, about the ease with which people can accustom themselves to horrible things happening right over a, how you say, wall. Concentration camp wall. How, and just the way brutality and savagery become normalized and, and managed, to quote Max's book,
Right.
So the absence of Jews. Now, what Ben doesn't like about that is he needs someone to identify with when he goes see a movie. He needs heroes, right?
Right.
And victims. And then he needs to see a Nazi villain doing evil things. So he knows.
You mean he doesn't like nuanced characters and anti-heroes?
Not only
he doesn't like moral ambiguity, and he doesn't
like
into
moral
Patricia
ambiguity.
Highsmith.
He also doesn't like a mirror, because that's what this movie is. This movie is a mirror of all of the reasonable monsters in this moment who don't really care to know what's going on behind that wall. And I'm not talking about since October 7th. I'm talking about leading up to October 7th.
Right. You saw those videos of that, like, big trampoline that people had set up. They were protesting aid trucks being brought in, and they were trying to make it into like a family fun way to do it. I mean, one of the most sociopathic protests I've seen is protesting aid trucks. You kind of can't make it up. The level of inhumanity. There was footage of a girl on a trampoline right outside the wall, like right near where the trucks were trying to cross. And someone tweeted out, and I quote tweeted, and I was like, I love this scene from Zone of Interest.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm surprised they didn't get a bouncy castle. And I saw a family of, like, probably religious settlers, or religious Jewish Israelis at least, sitting cross-legged on the ground with an acoustic guitar, singing songs about Mashiach, like folky Israeli religious songs, as so they, beautiful. As they are, protesting these aid trucks.
Here's a comedic take that my friend had about this. About how ridiculous it would have been for him to have been saying that he refuted his Jewishness. Like, it's actually hilarious to think about some Jewish guy winning his first Oscar for his Holocaust film and then being like, I refute my Judaism. And he pulls his mask off and he looks like Brad Pitt. It's like a Philip Roth novel.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
also, that would just be the incorrect use of the word refute. You refute an argument. You refute. Right. I mean, I'm not even sure.
I think they think he meant repudiate. Honestly,
repudiate. Or renounce.
Right, renounce.
But still, we have to say.
All right, Daniel, you as a lyricist, what would you like to say? What would your
you got to be very precise.
What would
your
constructive anti-Zionist Johnathan Glazer embracing criticism be?
Well, I would just say that the analogy would be this. It would be like, I don't know, this is bad, but like a groom at a wedding getting up there and for his wedding speech says, I, with all of my heart, absolutely would hate my wife to be objectified or mistreated or whatever. Like, because he created a standalone clause that could be a complete sentence, So what you said earlier, like we repudiate or we rebuke or we refute the weaponization or exploitation of our Jewishness or the Holocaust.
Right.
Don't use the gerund being, because
right.
Yeah.
Any other examples? You want just a small quibble? Okay. Yeah. Well,
that's just that. Yeah.
It reminded me of, in a weird way, it was like the opposite of what Kamala Harris did. Because remember when Kamala Harris was like, that's why we need a ceasefire. And everyone's like, woo! And she's like, for at least 6 weeks, which is the offer already on the table. So she weaponized, like, she knew her stuff would be clipped. So she put a big pause in there. Completely. So she would look better than she was. And this guy kind of let himself get clipped.
Exactly. I mean, essentially what Kamala did was the politician version of Wayne from Waynesboro being like, I really liked it. Not.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But right. Yeah, I would have wanted to give that little speech a little once over, but it doesn't matter. But it is wild that two of the biggest targets for hasbara, opprobrium, and pylons in the past 2 or 3 weeks have been Jewish filmmakers accepting awards at film festivals. Look, the first one was that Israeli guy who made a speech about how his Palestinian collaborator, co-filmmaker, how they were about to go back to Israel to a completely differentiated set of laws and rules and talking about apartheid. And he got called an anti-Semite by German non-Jewish news outlets.
It's insane. And then there was a minister who was clapping because he won. There were 2 people who won. One was Jewish, Israeli, and one was Palestinian. And this minister was clapping, and she got in trouble for clapping. So she said she was clapping for the Jewish winner, not for the Palestinian. It's unbelievable. Yeah. The Germans are so like there's a lot to unpack there, but German gaslighting. Then we got Noah Tishby. Let's see what Noah Tishby had to say. She had more of a general analysis of the night in general. Tonight's Oscars was a subtle and overt display of Jew hatred. Hollywood stars, including Billie Eilish, Phineas, Mark Ruffalo, Ava DuVernay, Rami Youssef, and Kana Chasing Horse, wore red pins that represent the group Artists for Ceasefire. Rami Youssef explained that the pins symbolize justice for the people of Palestine, adding, it's a universal message of just let's stop killing kids. Notably absent were the yellow pins representing the hostages kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. And that's the point. If you're calling for a ceasefire without calling for the release of the hostages, you are promoting Hamas's agenda by questioning Israel's right to self-defense. It was Hamas who barbarically attacked Israel, breaking the ceasefire on October 7th. Since then, Hamas has consistently rejected numerous ceasefire proposals. Hamas is not interested in a ceasefire. It is interested in murdering Jews and sacrificing Palestinians. If these artists cared so much about a ceasefire, they'd be applying pressure on Hamas rather than attacking Israel. Because Hamas
with all of that,
about what Hollywood is saying. With
exactly,
all the sway
what
that
anyone
these actors have. Oh, right.
With all of the leverage that anyone in America has over Hamas. Have you seen these billboards?
President.
Yeah. Have you ever seen these billboards like tell Hamas to release the hostages?
Yeah, I know. It's like all right, fine. I'll
like, hello, you've reached the Hamas hotline. Yeah. If you're an American who wishes to lodge a complaint about our hostage policies, please press 1. Hello, hello, America.
Let's be honest, it would be please press 666. At its mildest, this is subconscious anti-Semitism. At its worst, deliberate attacks against the Jews. Either way, it's appalling and needs to be addressed. We cannot allow Hollywood celebrities to be manipulated into furthering Hamas's hateful agenda around the world. If she cares about the hostages, which she doesn't, but if she cared about the hostages, she would want a ceasefire so that Israel would be stopped from killing its own hostages, which has already happened.
Not to mention its soldiers dying in pretty large numbers.
Right.
The star that really galls me, and I'm glad she called them out, is Kana Chasing Horse. I mean, when is the Native American community going to stop, hogging center stage, centering themselves, and erasing Jewish suffering? Just like when are we going to get like we've been
their role in the genocide?
100%, and their role in the Spanish Inquisition and their role in the Holocaust. Where were they? Think about that.
I didn't see them protesting when they were.
I didn't see them accept a single Jewish immigrant after the Spanish Inquisition.
That's true. Good point.
Do better.